Welcome everyone to this really exciting first ever webinar for us with a very exciting speaker who we're all really looking forward to hearing from, and that is Hanan, who I will let Shanze introduce in a moment. For those who don't know about Network for Migration Matters, we are an international and interdisciplinary platform, and our aim is to unite people from different countries and different sectors to share knowledge and experience about migration issues. And that takes a whole range of different subjects, but we usually look at things through a human rights lens. We have a blog and webinars coming up, and this is of course our first ever one. So please check out the website, subscribe. We'll be sending email updates of our latest news, and follow us on social media. So without further ado, after that little intro, I will just give a quick little introduction about housekeeping. So as you can tell, this is being live streamed onto YouTube. After the event, we will put this webinar onto YouTube so you can watch at your leisure. If you love it that much, you can come back and watch it all over again. And if you have any questions during the webinar, just pop them in the chat function at the side, the right-hand side of the YouTube video. And in the Q&A session at the end, we will be asking Hanan those questions. We probably won't get through all of them, but please pop them in and that would be fantastic. Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to Shanze, who is going to give an introduction about our speaker. Over to you, Shanze.
Hello everyone, I'm Shanze. I've been working alongside Imogen trying to get this all running. Thank you so much for anyone who has after work joined us here. We're very, very glad that anyone and everyone who's here for our first webinar is here for this one. Goodwill Caravan is a place and almost a family, very close to my heart. They are in essence a non-profit humanitarian charity that covers refugee protection projects, including shelter, food, legal and medical support, both in the UK and Greece. I say they're close to my heart because last August I was in Athens with Hanan and Anam and a few other members of Goodwill Caravan for what was possibly over a week, but it seemed like at least a month or two because of how much I saw, and there is just a lot to take in. It is what we see in the news about refugees and the work that refugees charities do is nothing in comparison to the work that is needed and is going on there. So that was a very enlightening experience for me, and one that has kept me very close to Goodwill Caravan and Hanan, and to help them as much as I can through their projects and also learn from them and the people that work within this sector. So Goodwill Caravan's aim is mainly focused on refugee families, orphans, those that are detained, unaccompanied children, and essentially those who are at highest risk of things that we don't normally talk about, such as organ trade, trafficking, and kidnapping. So Goodwill Caravan is at the forefront helping such individuals. They may have started off as ground support a few years ago with Hanan's big heart of wanting to help everyone and anyone. But now they are a lot more than that. And Hanan will go into this and explain to you that today they focus on long-term rehabilitation of those refugees when they arrive in Greece, to them resettling, whether that's in Greece or anywhere in Europe. Their founder Hanan will be speaking to us about this and the importance of long-term rehabilitation and the support that it requires from us, me, you, and anyone who wants to support such causes. I will leave it to Hanan to tell you about herself, but I will sing her praise just a little bit before she begins. Hanan is a mental health practitioner, a published cognitive neuroscience graduate, a mother, and most importantly, a very large-hearted humanitarian. She is currently undertaking her PhD at UCL and was the founder of Goodwill Caravan and is still the founder of the charity. And I will leave it now to Hanan to tell you about Goodwill Caravan and carry through this webinar before we come back to ask the questions.
Thank you, Shanze and Imogen, for having me here today. I have to say that the work that we do, it's not just me. I mean, you met our team. 50% of our staff are, in fact, refugees, and we really believe in practicing what we preach and helping refugees access the job market and know how to integrate in Greece. But I'll just start with a little introduction on how Goodwill Caravan started. It was like many other humanitarians. I went out to Calais, I remember initially, and I was doing food bag distributions, which is what most people think is what's needed. And now we've gone more towards long-term solutions. And I remember meeting a mom with 2 children. The children were on their own and the mother needed help. They thought she was dead, but she had had heart failure. And at that point, I realized that if I wasn't there with a British passport with the couple of girls that were with me, that perhaps the ambulance wouldn't have come to help her. After that, with a bit of legal work, working with Safe Passage UK for around a year, I was volunteering with them. It came to light how important legal aid is in the refugee crisis in Europe. These refugees have come from all over the world, Palestine, conflict zones, Iraq, Syria is the one that people see a lot on TV. And they have traveled from crossing military checkpoint to military checkpoint, selling everything they own, gold, in some cases, women having to sell themselves to get their children to cross a military checkpoint, then arriving in Turkey, where they have discovered mass graves of refugees there. Turkey has been declared by the EU as a safe third country, and I personally have nothing against Turkey. I visited it with family. It's a wonderful country, but unfortunately, the refugee trail is not a safe one. There are a lot of gangs, a lot of traffickers, and refugees do go missing, and they do sometimes lose their life. By the time they get to the dinghies that you see on the news, they are exhausted and emotionally and physically spent. They have to give, I believe it's 1,000 euros per passenger, even if it's a child. And usually most families make it on their 2nd or their 3rd try. That's if they don't drown on the way, because their dinghies are sabotaged. Now, most refugees coming from these conflict zones believe that when they arrive in Greece, which is part of Europe, that they're safe. But unfortunately, that's not the truth. And it's not anything against Greece itself. Greece is a first border entry point for most refugees coming. I mean, you've got Italy and a couple of other countries, but mostly it's Greece. And Greece are overwhelmed. They have officially over 100,000 refugees stranded within their borders. We know, and other nonprofits working in Greece, that the number is at least double or triple that, because half the people that come through our office are not registered and they've walked from the border. However, unfortunately, when they do arrive in these camps, they think that they're going to be processed, they're going to be given shelter, but in reality, they end up in a tent, really squalid conditions. A lot of the time they spend 1 to 3 years in these camps, and the statistics say that there are approximately 40 to 70 gangs per refugee camp in Greece. So you can imagine how difficult these situations are. Refugees are exhausted. They're thinking about going with traffickers to get out of Greece. And it's really important for organizations in Greece to raise awareness, to let refugees know. And this is what Goodwill Caravan do. We welcome refugees along with other groups that are working, wonderful groups that are working in Athens, in Attica, and on the islands. We let them know what the real deal can be, how much danger they could be putting their children in if they send a child with a trafficker alone to Holland or Germany to get a family reunification status, which in reality takes a couple of years anyway. And so we went from food distribution and aid distribution to sheltering women and children, vulnerables, torture victims. And then we were told from the feedback by thousands of families that what they need is legal support. And when you think about it, when you see the news, you see refugee camps, you don't think about a lawyer or you don't think about legal support. However, in reality, if a refugee misses their appointment in one of the 3 main asylum services in Athens, they are put on the back of the waiting list and need to wait another 2 to 3 years in Athens before they get to the top of that list. Now, there are people that have been separated for over 3 years before they even reach Greece. In many instances, unfortunately, because the male member of the family that's over the age of 18 knows that their daughters, their sisters, that their wives are not safe in refugee camps. Many of them, and you can Google this, take their own lives so that the females and the children in the family go on the closer to the top of the waiting list. And these stories unfortunately happen all the time and every day, not the suicides, but self-harm, people going with traffickers and being detained. And so the work that we do when it comes to legal is very important. We go into detention centers, working on the release of women and children and unaccompanied children who are there for no criminal act. They're there mainly because they've entered Greece. They are supposed to have the right of asylum in Europe, but they don't have any known address. And if they haven't registered in a refugee camp because they don't know, or they've come walking from the border, they're usually swept up and put in detention centers. Now, unfortunately, the statistics show that over 30,000 unaccompanied children and minors have gone missing after the entry to the land or the sea borders of Greece. And this, I'm not going to get into politics or anything like that, but what I am saying is that unfortunately, these detention centers and refugee camps are often not very safe for unaccompanied children and unaccompanied minors, and also for women and children. So it's distributions that we continue to do. Our legal service works. We have a team that work tirelessly to help refugees, whether they are coming for support with their asylum claims or whether they are wanting help with a minor or a child or a family member or a friend that's detained. We have one woman now that we're trying to find her shelter that lost her son in one of the fires that you see on the news in Mytilene. It was apparently, I have to say, a right-wing group that set these tents on fire. This isn't common. I mean, it happens more recently. However, before, the Greek people overall quite welcoming of refugees. And so however the fire happened, the point is this 5-year-old boy died and he burned alive. And when she was telling our team the story, it's really hard to hold your tears because they look at our team for stability. Me as a mother of 3 myself, it's difficult to imagine that my son is 7, that I watched him burn alive and I couldn't do anything about it. So there's so much out there. The work that we do is so very relevant. Helping one person, many people will tell me, what's the point of helping one person? The problem is so big. No, these are people, they're not numbers, they're not stats. Most of the people that have joined this link will be people that already know that. So thank you for joining. The work that we do really is important, and stressing on legal, it is extremely relevant. The legal services that we do. We're now hoping to launch a job center. And these are the more long-term solutions that I was talking about earlier, to help refugees integrate and to help them access the job market, because many people in Greece don't trust refugees. They make them nervous, and refugees don't have the Greek language. So we're looking to continue our female empowerment skills workshops, English classes that we already have running, add Greek classes and some skills workshops, maybe welding, things that are practical, driving. And that job center will be a place where all refugees are welcome, including migrants that are not usually welcome by larger organizations. For example, like they call them economic migrants from Pakistan. You have unaccompanied minors, you have children, you have very young youth that have been sent from Pakistan by their families because they believe falsely that they will get asylum in Greece, which is incorrect. They are usually deported. So our main projects go from emergency distributions all the way through to legal and to job security. And I welcome any questions that you have on our work in Greece, and I'd welcome any questions from anyone.
Okay, I will just, okay, thank you so much, Hanan. I hope that anyone who's watching has got some insight the project that Goodwill Caravan does, and also not just about Goodwill Caravan, but about the point that this isn't something that when we go out, we give out food or you send money. It is about rehabilitating people from the beginning of their journey, arriving in Greece, when they have to go to the immigration centers, the 3, 4, 5 years that they have to go through, and then helping them resettle, be reunited with family. And that's normally done in a way where families are broken, and it's a long process. And that is what we're trying to get across with Goodwill Caravan, that when we hear about refugees, we just don't think that they have a life ahead that they need to build, that it's about their survival women. And that is something that Goodwill Caravan really work on, and hopefully that's what has come across as well. So we have some questions. Our first question that I'm going to ask Hanan is that Hanan, you work with some of the most vulnerable people. Who do you choose to help? As you said, surely you can't help everyone, but you have to help one person or the other. How do you make this decision as to today, right, I have 5 cases, but I'm going to work on this rather than that one? How do you choose that?
Sure, this is a question that we get quite frequently. We have a vulnerability criteria list, and it starts with unaccompanied children that are on their own. The younger, the more vulnerable. And then you have unaccompanied minors. Also, you have siblings, trying to keep siblings together and not separate them. And then after that, pregnant women with children, not only pregnant women alone. Rape victims also. You have women over the age of 18 that have been subject, unfortunately, victims of rape, sometimes gang rape, and these are cases that we'll take in. So normally what we tell the legal team or the outreach team to do, of course, we assess everyone, regardless of where they're from, whether they're seen as an economic migrant or whether they're seen as a refugee. And we'll assess them all, but our vulnerability criteria, it's like number 1 would be an unaccompanied child. So for example, if you have a woman with several children coming for help and you have a child, we've had a case, our youngest detention release case was 2 years old. She was on the border of Greece and Turkey. So we get this all the time, every day, that you will have to pick the 2-year-old child that's on her own because she is more at risk, for example, of disappearing, rather than picking the guardian that is with children. So the guardian should be able to take care of the children from something like this happening, like kidnapping, more readily than a child on their own that's been separated from a parent because the parent drowned. So unfortunately, it's really sad. We can't help everyone, but we do refer to other groups. There are quite a few organizations registered with the municipality of Athens. I cannot sing the praises of each group more than the other. They're wonderful people. And often we've got a coordination group. Often we'll say, guys, we can't help this person now, but can you, or do you know someone that can help? So it's a combination of making a decision based on our vulnerability criteria, but also it's a combination of hands on hands working together. I have so much respect for the groups working in Athens, and if anyone does come out with us or wants to get involved, I will always, we had a united appeal recently where 6 organizations united with Goodwill Caravan to raise funds together. We have respect and trust every one of them. And I don't think that we'd be able to have this kind of impact and reduce duplication and have genuine work without working together. So that's how we come to these decisions. It's not easy, it's horrible. In the beginning, I had this delusion that I could help everyone, and I thought, what's a credit card here? What's some debt there? This family is entitled to help. I have to figure out how to help them. But then I realized the problem really is bigger than me or the group that we're with. So we tried to make a structure, tried to make vulnerability criteria, an assessment process, waiting lists, referral pathways. And also bigger things like raising awareness, letting refugees know we're working on a program where we can do an app where refugees in Turkey know that they may actually be better off trying to settle down in a safe area in Turkey, not on the refugee trail, rather than come to Greece and put themselves and their children in danger. So it really is a combination of raising awareness, fair vulnerability criteria, assessment, outreach, and referral pathways. It's not ideal, but it's what we have.
Thank you, Hanan. I think that just kind of tells us how difficult it is, and it's not one of those decisions where you feel that, oh, I feel that this person is more important than the other. You can see that it's very strategic, and it's done in a way where everything is assessed. So that's really good to know, because you don't really hear about those things normally. The other question, which might just be the elephant in the room, and I think it might pose it to you earlier rather than later, is how has the pandemic affected the work that you do, and your point of view generally on the refugee crisis? Because nowadays we aren't really hearing about the effects it's having on the refugee crisis, whether that's in Greece or any of the other neighboring countries. So how has it affected it, and what might be the solutions, do you think, coming forward? Or has any good come out of it at all?
Well, the pandemic closed down all access for refugees to the city centre. The asylum service closed down, I believe it was for 2.5 months. When refugees went back to access their appointments, many of them had been shifted 6 months or more. So it has affected them with regards to their plans. If people were waiting for 3 years in a refugee camp and have gone through hell, they realize that they need to wait another 6 months or a year. But it's not just that. We have an accompaniment service that goes from 4 remote refugee camps to the center of Athens. And unfortunately, because the buses that we have, and we're hoping to be able to continue them past the end of August, that these buses, we had to do 25 people rather than 50 because of the safety measures that we had to put in place. Nobody told us that we needed to put these in place, but we did, because we don't want to cause more harm than good. And until now, only 10 to 15% of refugees are able to leave refugee camps in most remote camps, other than the fact that they're in the middle of nowhere, so they wouldn't be able to go somewhere if they wanted to without a cash card. The pandemic has caused a lot of cash cards to be stopped or cancelled. Also, the Helios program in Greece, which was sheltering tens of thousands of families, has now evicted families, because when the asylum, not all the families, but many, thousands of families are now in the streets of Greece, and they don't know where to go because they got their ID card. But when they get their ID card in Greece, it means that they supposedly should be able to access the job market. But refugees often don't have the Greek language. The skills that they have are not transferable in Greece, or they're not seen to be transferable. I mean, we've met surgeons in refugee camps in Mytilene, really respectable people. I mean, everybody is seen as respectable by us. But when you see a surgeon that's living in a tent, and you have people 10 tents down that are really sick, but he's not licensed to help them, it's difficult to watch. So to answer the question of the person that asked, the pandemic delayed everything further than it was already delayed. With us, we refused to close down our emergency services. We had to close down our classes. We had to close down our legal service. We made it online and over the phone. However, with our food distributions, our mother and baby essentials, we distribute around 10,000 nappies a month. We wish we could do more. We have some people walking 5-8 miles to come from a refugee camp that's much closer to get 4 nappies because they have nothing for their children. And they've used the same nappy over and over and over too many times. We did not close down our emergency services. We distributed 1,800 food packs on families during the month of Ramadan. And the police came, I believe the team said, every week a couple of times, and our coordinator had to explain to them that we're, keeping social distancing. We've got, the hand gel, we're being really careful, we're wearing the masks, but if we don't help feed these people, then they're going to starve to death. So for emergency services, we stayed open. A couple of other organizations stayed open, not many. However, the effect on refugees in Greece, it's caused a lot of them to go with traffickers, which really puts them in danger. Real danger. The organ trafficking route is very high in Greece. One refugee could make a trafficker $100,000. Doesn't matter if it's a child or an adult, a promise from a trafficker to reach Holland and they could end up on a surgical table dead. So these are things that we try to explain to people. They're not far-fetched, they happen all the time. And it is a shame, the kind of delays that have happened. It's mostly delays. Put aside the fact that there were they say the numbers were low in Greece. Many people inside Greece know that those numbers were underreported, but I cannot comment on that. But what I do know is there were quite a lot of sick people in refugee camps. They did try to isolate them. And when they come out of this and when they're finally able to leave the refugee camps, they'll find that they're stuck in the country for longer than they had hoped. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Hanan. Yes, I think that gives us more information that any of us have yet found out from the news or anything that we have read. So that is, it's good to know, because we are very much in our bubble thinking about how the pandemic might have affected us and how we're working from home and how life has been very difficult. But it is important to keep in mind what is going around the world, and especially in those circumstances and the people who are working out there. You mentioned the government a few times, so it'd be interesting to know how Goodwill Caravan and how charities in general have dealt with the political and government restrictions in Greece. Is it making it harder for small NGOs to operate on ground? And what do you see the future for NGOs in Greece going forward?
I'm glad you asked that question. Unfortunately, the government have changed their legislation for nonprofits and NGOs 4 times in the past 5 months, which is more than we're used to. They've made new rules, documents that most nonprofits wouldn't know where to get. We're registered in the UK and we're registered in Greece also. However, the kinds of things that they're asking NGOs to do to get their accountants audited by a chartered accountant that's approved by the government, that's 4,000 or 5,000 euros that most nonprofits don't have. But also they've changed the rules and regulations for asylum services, the ways to register your ID documents, the way to get a tax number, the way to get your travel document. Things have changed so much. What's happened is that there's so much confusion for refugees, which us and other organizations are trying to help with, but also they have made it really difficult for nonprofits working out there, that they are being forced to register as NGOs, not just nonprofit organizations. And unfortunately, to date, I believe 16 international organizations have been shut down. And quite a few of them are really close to our hearts. They've done such good work in refugee camps. They've literally been evicted. This was the end of June. Our application is still pending. It's moving along. We're doing everything that we can to make that work. We would not take funds out of donations for something like this. So we're trying to fundraise for it. It has made life, it's made charities out there quite anxious. There are charities like Help Refugees, which are writing a petition even for their own work in Greece. And they're huge. They're being affected by it too. So it's not just smaller nonprofits, it's smaller, medium, and large. They're almost being evicted from Greece. It seems that they may prefer for national Greek organizations to work in Greece and have less international interference. Human Rights Watch is also doing petitions and trying to help smaller nonprofits, but it has been a really difficult time. And it wasn't just the pandemic that hit Greece. It was also so many nonprofits that refugees have learned to trust and rely on have just simply been shut down, and there's nothing they can do about it, which is quite sad, especially nonprofits that had their major operations in refugee camps. So for example, there are nonprofits that have their projects in central Athens, so they can work around that. However, if organizations had their work in refugee camps mainly, then they were evicted from the camps the end of June. I hope that answers the question. I can't hear you, Shante.
Oh, thank you, Hanan, and thank you, Hanan, for pointing out that you can hear me. We've had a question from one of the viewers watching us, and they've asked if you could give us more details about the plan for building safe lands in Turkey, and how's the work going on with this strategy going forward? Hanan is muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you for asking that question. So before the pandemic hit, was around February, I had gone out to Istanbul to talk to a couple of the organizations out there about this really exciting app that we wanted to do and wanted to make a building a safe place for refugees, at least around the center of Istanbul, to come to. Education place, a tea house, something like the job center that we're launching soon in Athens. Unfortunately, the app was not welcomed by the Turkish government. We asked a few officials and they said that they wouldn't want to back something that, again, this is not political, this is just the people that we spoke to. If we go to other people, perhaps the information will be different. they said that they don't want to back an app that will keep refugees in Turkey, because Turkey has a lot more refugees than Europe combined. So it wasn't welcomed. So now with the pandemic hitting, we had to press pause on any projects that we do in Istanbul. We had hoped to have one branch in Istanbul and one branch in Kayseri, which is closer to the refugee trail and closer to the sea in Izmir. We were hoping to be able to catch people along the way and help them integrate and stay in Turkey. Not on the refugee trail itself, just towns close to the refugee trail. There are a couple of families that make products in these towns that are close to the sea, and we're wanting to help them with these skills learning projects to create their own products that they're already making, but to help them with the business model, and so they can become self-sufficient and can stay closer to Syria or Iraq, Palestine, wherever they came from, wherever they fled war or persecution, in the case of Palestine. However, we have had to put those projects on hold because unfortunately, Goodwill Caravan is nothing special about what happened to us. It happened to businesses, self-employed people all over the world. For us, we lost 75% of our 2020-2021 funding, and part of that was going to go to Turkey. But we hope to continue with these conversations in the future. Perhaps in 2021, we could look into it again. But for now, we're needing to focus our efforts in Greece and for the families that we support here in the UK.
Thank you, Hannan. Just so as you said, for now, you will have to focus more on the work that you're doing in Greece, and maybe Turkey will have to take a back stand. Just focusing on the work that kind of is going on in Greece right now. We know that previously your workshops that were running out of a center. So right now, are they face-to-face? Do you have any remote learning facilities? Is Goodwill Caravan moving in a way to adapt to the pandemic? How is the workshops or the work you're delivering to build a community changing and evolving during this time?
All right, so thank you for that question. For the past 4 years, we've run accessories workshops for mainly, we used to call them rape victims, but now it's called the survivors group. So it was families that have had a member of their family go through something like this on the refugee trail or back home. And we used to make these rainbow bracelets, hope bracelets, and sell them for them here in the UK. After that, we started looking into selling them at markets in Greece, but then realized that the accessories workshop, I mean, it's something nice psychologically. I mean, as a mental health practitioner myself, it's good for people to put their effort into something and get something out of it. But we realized that our skills workshops are great, but they have to be more practical to help people get into the job market. So now it's computer IT classes that we're starting now, hopefully in another week and a half. Because that's when we're launching our job center, and a jack of all trades type jobs like painting, welding, plastering. These will be for both genders, but mostly the people that are showing interest in them are males. And so we're going away from painting, and that can be a pastime, and accessories, teddy bears, and we're going more towards things that can help them have an income. We are also starting an online cookery class that will be run by refugees, and it will be just a refugee showing people how to make a dish from their country, and they'll have the income from that, and we're hoping that that will take off. So as much as teddy bears and accessories are cute and we love them, but for someone to be able to make an income and pay their rent and integrate and stay in Greece, we realized that they need to be a little bit more hardcore skills. So it will be, as I said, painting, welding, plastering. Women are choosing more the cookery classes, IT also. And a really popular one is hair, makeup, tattooing. We're looking into partnering with the DRC for that because they're already running those courses. So we're not looking to reinvent the wheels. We're trying to find other organizations that are already doing this to partner with in a way that that doesn't involve a lot of money. Just we're working together to help other people, and then we look for the funding separately. If some of the mothers are finding it difficult to let go of the teddy bear workshops, so we could continue to run those, but again, for a refugee to go up to a Greek mega store and sell teddy bears. It's not something that that will be easy for them to do, and not something that they have found accepted. We're working now on, it's something that we've been working on for some time now, getting the EU approval for the teddy bears, so that if some of the mothers that have been with us for a couple of years now want to continue doing the teddy bears, that we can sell them on eBay, that we already have a link on eBay for people to fundraise money if they shop on eBay. So we're looking to sell these teddy bears on eBay. So more hardcore skills to be more realistic and help people access the job market. I hope that answers the question. If it doesn't, please ask away.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Hanan. It's good for us to know that. I think when, especially like charity events and everywhere we go, everyone's quite excited to be like, oh, I'll buy a teddy bear or bracelet, and it's good to have the connection that it's created from the person that you possibly helped. But myself as well, being there and seeing the situation there, one needs to have an earning. A lot of the people coming there can't speak the language, don't have the skills to get a job in Athens or in wider Greece. So these workshops are really essential because they don't require that longer time of training. And the fact that Goodwill Caravan, I really like that you said you're not reinventing the wheel, you're working with organizations that are already there and working together as one, because there's so many. And I've always heard you say that it is about working together, especially with your United Appeal. So it's good to know that these projects are moving forward in that way, and that different organizations are coming together with the aim and not being selfish to promote their own ways. This is a more wider question as to someone like yourself who's worked within this world for such a long time and seen so many changing patterns. What do you think is that in the current situation, do you find that there are refugees that are coming in from particular countries in the current moment or in the last few years? Has this trend changed? Why so? And what are your thoughts on that?
So from the legal service and from the refugee camp visits that we do and the bus service, we've seen less Iraqis coming over. And I think that this has more to do with, for example, we have around 30 families to date that we've helped settle in Germany. And because many families arrived in Germany and then moved on to Holland or other countries, New Zealand, where they feel they're more welcome. Now that Germany's rules with refugees have become tighter, with Iraqis, they're refusing their asylum and telling them that their country is now safe and that they can return. So there are quite a lot of refugees that are skipping Greece. They're just going through with traffickers if they can, or going to Italy so that they can make it to other countries and not going through the Greece route. So it seems they are either avoiding or perhaps staying behind in Turkey. It is Iraqis that we've seen a cut in. Also refugees from Eritrea. It has gone down, at least the access that we're seeing. The refugee populations that have gone up and are on the up and up are from Afghanistan. We've seen an extreme increase in refugees from Iran. And again, the Greek government will often call them economic migrants. There's also an increase in economic migrants from Pakistan, especially really young youth. Young youth from Pakistan can start at 12, 10. We've seen as young as 10. And in their early 20s make up the bulk of the prostitution rings in Athens and in the Attica area. These boys arrive, realize they have no rights to any asylum, and unfortunately get caught up in the prostitution rings. And those are some of the highest suicides that happen in Athens, and it's really sad. I remember when we went and sat with the assistant ambassador in the Pakistani embassy in Athens, I just looked at him and said, is anyone going to help these people? Because in Greece, unfortunately, they refer to Pakistani youth as cockroaches. They want to detain them and deport them. They are worth more to many people as organs broken down than as people. And so I'm always telling, and I'll address anyone on here that's originally from Pakistan, to please join us in trying to welcome. I believe they're refugees. They're running away from something. Many of them say that they're running away from political persecution, which by definition is a refugee. and to welcome them. In our center, we want to do different projects specifically for on days, separate days for youth from Pakistan, help them access the job market, help them gain some kind of protection, asylum in Greece, so that they can have a future. So it is sad that the number of youth from Pakistan are increasing. Iran and Afghanistan is understandable. And you have the continued influx of refugees from Syria, but we haven't seen that stopping. And I must add stateless refugees. They call them bidun in Arabic, bidun meaning without. There's an increase of stateless refugees coming into Greece over the past few years.
Sorry, everyone, I was muted. Thank you for that. I think it's interesting for us to know the types of people and from what countries and what different nationalities are seeking asylum within Europe. I think when we think about refugees, mass population still thinks about Syria and maybe Iraq, Afghanistan, but not so much about young Pakistani boys coming over and getting caught up in the prostitution ring. I'm not sure how many times someone would have heard that or seen about that in the news. So I think it is important for us as individuals to raise awareness about that and talk about these issues, and also in the Pakistani community to talk about this and see that why are these young men leaving the country, and if they are, then why aren't they being helped within Greece or Europe in general. I would just like to ask one last question to conclude everything. It's all well and good us sitting here and listening to you and thinking of, well done, Hanan, for doing such great work. Keep going. I'll join in the next webinar and give a like to Goodwill Caravan. But what do you think as individuals, as very privileged individuals, I would add, living in the UK comfortably, what do you think we should be doing and what are the kind of actions we should be taking to play an active hand, whether that's small or big? But what do you suggest someone after this webinar finishes wants to do something? What should they do?
I think that it would be really helpful to look at different organizations, Goodwill Caravan being one of them, but look at the other organizations working out in Athens. I cannot sing their praises enough. When people come over to volunteer, I always mention the other organizations that are out there because they work really hard, and some people went there for 1 month and ended up living there for many years. But what people can do is please like our page. You can follow us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter is a little bit weaker. So that you can follow the work that we do and follow any United appeals that we do with other organizations. Another thing that I tell people, because I was in this situation before I got involved with the refugee crisis before 2015, I used to watch the news and sometimes I just want to switch it off because it's so depressing. Palestinians are still dying, Syrians are still dying. What am I going to do? I'm just one person. And one thing that I'll often say in talks or events that I speak at is that one is enough. So we always encourage people to donate, to set up monthly donations. You can do that on justgiving.com/Goodwill Caravan. If you donate £5 or donate £10 a month, whatever you can afford. And if you can't donate, share stories, share even news links. It doesn't have to be about Goodwill Caravan, about what's going on in Greece. Maybe be mindful about what kind of news links you share. We share things on our page that are verifiable because we know them to be true from what's going on in Greece, especially Human Rights Watch, for example, and things done by Help Refugees. They have a really good information page. And it's really helpful if you help one person. So we always tell people if you set up a monthly donation, it helps us continue our projects. And it helps, for example, if your £5 goes towards one family, it will go towards that family while they're in Greece for all this time. I always tell people that if, for example, 20 people donate together, they could shelter 2 families for a month. People often feel so small when it comes to what they can do because they're just one person, or helping one person isn't enough. It is, because one refugee will tell another refugee that this person helped me and they didn't even know me. And it makes such a difference, and it's a domino effect. For people that can't afford to donate anything or just don't want to because they donate to many charities, please share. share, 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 whether it's stories off our page or whether it's stories off other trusted organizations that work out there. Share the stories, raise awareness, because some people might go out there and find their calling, or you might share something with someone and change 100 people's lives. You don't know the power of your own network until you try. So it's about sharing. We have pallets going every 3 months out to Greece. If you have anything that's nearly new that you would want your children to wear or your family members to wear, or you have any nappies that are spare from when your kids were younger, we take pallets over there. They get transported once every 3 months. That's something helpful that you can do. There's so much more that each individual can do that can impact so many people's lives. But people often, like I did before, feel too small to make a difference. So like I said, we're on Facebook, coming back to Goodwill Caravan. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. What we report is what we know to be true. We're always welcome to come out. We have groups approximately 3 times a year that come out. Shanze was on one of them. And come see for yourself. You don't have to take our word for it. Helping one person, whether it's through us or whether it's through someone else, as long as the populations get helped, that's the point. Otherwise, we can't really call ourselves humanitarians. I hope that answers the question, Shanze.
Thank you so much, Hanan. It was wonderful to hear from you, and thank you so much for just reiterating the fact that it just takes one of us and to do a little bit, and if it's not money, if it's not going out, it's sharing, which is something that in the last 4 months we have all as individuals been doing quite a lot, and on a lot of matters raised globally. So if we can do this on this matter as well, I think that will be great. And I can't thank you enough for coming here, talking to us about Goodwill Caravan, telling us about the issues that we won't hear on the news, about what's happening in Greece, the effects of the pandemic. But thank you so much. I'm going to pass it over to Imogen now, who's just going to briefly conclude. But I would just like to thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Shanze. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Hanan, and thank you as well to Shanze for sharing all that information and also chairing the discussion that we just had. We've had a lot of questions coming in and a lot of comments. We do have a few people asking about getting involved, which is obviously fantastic. If you do want to get involved, just to reiterate what Hanan said, there are ways like, for example, donating, but if you are, for example, a lawyer who wants to get involved, you can contact Hanan and the team at Goodwill Caravan and look into going out and, as Hanan said, seeing the situation yourself. I've noticed that Goodwill Caravan has actually put the email address for volunteers in the chat function at the side. So if you are interested, check out that email address, pop them an email and go from there. But what I will just say, aside from getting involved, is that what these webinars really hopefully do is raise awareness of these really important issues. And I think Hanan has raised some really interesting things. For example, telling refugees the risks that are involved with associating with traffickers. That's something which often we don't think about. We just think about the chain further on where they have been trafficked, but sometimes it's so easy to prevent the negative consequences that follow. Also, the importance of long-term support in the form of legal support and how that can actually make substantive change. What I really want to highlight is something which Hanan, I think, said very powerfully, in that helping one person is helping a person, and that is a human being, and people aren't just stats. So at times it might feel futile, but helping just that one person or that family really is so important. We are all people, we all have our one life. And if you think about the impact that someone could have on you, that makes it a completely different image, at least to me. And finally, it's been really interesting hearing about how Goodwill Caravan has adapted to the difficulties posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. obviously it's been impacting us all in a variety of different ways, but the refugees in Greece are really vulnerable. So it's really reassuring to hear that organisations like Goodwill Caravan are still operating and helping as much as they can. So with that kind of positive little ending, I suppose, I will thank you, Hanan, for coming, and thank you for talking to us and sharing all that fountain of experience and knowledge with us. And of course, thank you all for attending. This, as I said at the beginning, this webinar will be put on YouTube, so you can watch it again and again. And as Hanan said, share this webinar with your friends, with your family, get people finding out more, and you can always help that one person. So I think from us, thank you very much, and have a lovely evening or day, morning, wherever you are in the world. So thank you.
I would like to add just one last thing. I would be remiss if I don't mention that I may be the face that you're seeing right now, but I wouldn't be able to do any of this without the team here. And we wouldn't be able to do any of this without the team in Greece. Every member of Goodwill Caravan works so hard. Most of them are underpaid, overworked, and some of them are volunteers. And they really root for us. They're good people. They give their time, and none of this would exist without them. I cannot stress that enough. Even though it's my face that you see, there are people behind me that make this possible, and I couldn't do it without them. We're heading back out to Athens for the first time in 4.5 months this weekend, inshallah. We'll be working on a plethora of things that have been backed up over the past 4.5 months. And again, the girls are going out with me. One of the board members is going out too. And we're going to continue doing what we're doing with the other groups that are in Athens. I can't stress that more. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for everyone that's given your time. I know how busy people are, and God bless you.
Thank you. That was a really important ending as well. So anyone who can help and get involved, please do. And keep following Goodwill Caravan, keep following Network for Migration Matters. We've got some more interesting webinars coming up. Our next one is on the 11th of August about immigration detention. So that should be a really interesting one. Please come along, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you all virtually soon. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.